It's Oscars season, and if you're looking to catch up quickly on who the big players are, then you're in the right place. I'll go over the 10 Best Picture nominees, what their nominations are, some quick thoughts, maybe a little bit on some other surprises, other races along the way. We'll go alphabetical, starting with Bugonia. This is a Yorgos Lanthimos film about two conspiracy theorists who kidnap a high-powered pharmaceutical CEO. And it also happens to be a remake of the Korean film Save the Green Planet. If you like a bit of oddity in your film, some distinctive artistic vision, some uncomfortable humor, then this just might be your thing. Bugonia has 3 nominations besides Best Picture. Best Actress, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Score. Emma Stone and Yorgos seem to be a shoo-in for a nomination, at least for Emma Stone, when they're combined. And I'm not upset about that. I think it's fun that such an eclectic filmmaker is teamed up with one of the great acting talents of her generation. Many were disappointed that Jesse Plemons was not nominated for his performance as Teddy. I think that's reasonable. I think he does a great job. Scenes with Emma and Jesse interacting were probably the strongest element of the film to me, supported of course by the screenplay. It wasn't a favorite of mine for the year, but I do view it positively, and I think it's nice to have a relatively strange movie represented on the largest stage of Hollywood. F1. This is about old Brad Pitt trying to prove he can drive F1 races, even though he doesn't usually do that, and also learning to work with the young buck on his team. If you want to see some hot racing action, then this will probably give you what you're looking for. If you're looking for something else, it probably won't have that. F1 is nominated for Best Film Editing, Best Sound, Best Visual Effects. I think the editing nomination is a little bit of a joke. While there clearly is care taken with the races, I think the races are well done, well balanced, exciting, all that stuff. It is very sloppy to my eye with how it is cut and shot, especially in conversations in the non-racing stuff. And I think you can't just ignore the non-racing stuff in favor of the film's appreciable high end. Obviously, it has sound because it's loud. I don't think this is a great nomination because the mix feels pretty shaky to me at some points with the music, especially during the races. I think you lose a lot of detail in what's going on with the music in favor of the vrooms, and I think the music needs a little more presence. The VFX is interesting, and if you have the inclination, I'd recommend looking up some behind-the-scenes information about how they did all that stuff. But I think the nomination makes a lot of sense because they really brought some of that racing stuff to life with the help of VFX. I did a video on F1 already. I liked it for what it was, but I wish the Academy would nominate more interesting movies instead, personally. But I guess you gotta have a popcorn movie here and there to get some eyeballs. Frankenstein. It's Guillermo del Toro's take on Frankenstein, the story you probably already know and love, although I think all the elements here won't look necessarily familiar. It'll be a draw for you if you like Guillermo, or if you like big, grand, intricate spectacles, period drama, things of that sort. Frankenstein is nominated for Best Supporting Actor, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Production Design, Best Costume Design, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, Best Original Score, and Best Sound. I love the production design here. I think that would be a very well-deserved win. Very gorgeous, detailed, with so many sets evoking a great sense of awe. Unfortunately, the theater I saw this in did not have subwoofers in the screening room, so I missed out on a lot of the sound portion of this, but it did have mice in the ceiling, which was kind of confusing in a couple of scenes. I think the cinematography nomination is kind of a joke. The movie has no sense of visual rhythm because it stuffs everything so conspicuously with movement and grandiloquent gestures that the movie just frequently lacks room to breathe. Frankenstein's stitches look like they were drawn on with a Sharpie. Screenplay has nothing very interesting to say. I mean, the more I think about this movie, the less I like it, and I wish it were a little less well represented in these nominations. Next is Hamnet. This is the story of the life events that inspired William Shakespeare's creation of the classic play Hamlet. It was adapted from the 2020 novel by Maggie O'Farrell, which is historical fiction, for the record. It's not like a biopic. If you like emotional storytelling and historical fiction, then I would seek this out. Hamnet is nominated for Best Director, Best Actress, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Casting. I will circle back around to talk about Best Casting because that's a new award this year. Best Production Design, Best Costume Design, Best Original Score. It seems the most common sentiment coming out is that the film builds up a crushing sense of emotion, and I agree with that. I strongly felt the weight and felt the intended emotional ideas in the climax, especially. I think the movie succeeds a lot in what it's doing ultimately, and that's what matters. But I'm not an avid supporter of the movie because, at least to me, a majority of the movie felt a little bit rushed, like it doesn't quite come together to create emotional weight early on, even if it ultimately coalesces into something meaningful. So I'm not specifically feeling most of these nominations because while there is great work that ultimately comes out of this, I would rather see movies that feel a little bit more consistent and effective the whole way through in some of these things. But I mean, man, even despite saying all that, I think this is well worth it. The emotional weight it builds up is very meaningful. And to me, Hamnet is the first nominee I have mentioned so far. That is just kind of like a blanket recommendation. People should go see it because it's just good. Marty Supreme. Marty Supreme is a mostly fictional, barely biopic, loosely based on the life of Marty Reisman, a table tennis champion and hustler. It is directed by Just Josh Safdie, co-director of Good Time and Uncut Gems. If you liked either of those, and if you like stressful, anxious filmmaking, then this will be exactly the fix you need. Marty Supreme is nominated for Best Director, Best Actor, Best Original Screenplay, Best Casting, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Production Design. I am especially on board for Director, Actor, Screenplay. It's not that I disagree with the others, but they didn't specifically strike me the way that those few did. There was some general disappointment about the film's lack of a score nomination. To me, the film's score is better on its own than in the film, because I think some of the usage just doesn't line up well with tone across the two mediums. So, I think that's a small mark against the edit rather than score. But otherwise, the edit is very good in order to maintain all the speed and momentum and the stress while not being too overwhelming, still giving some dynamic breaks, because there are some breaks, just enough of a break while still keeping you really under the gun. The film is shot in a classically stress-inducing way of just, locking you into these intense close-ups, just rubbing your face in these wince-inducing actions and things that happen in the film, and not letting you detach from this character and what he's doing. This, I think, is my second favorite of the nominees, despite me having some questions about the ending that probably would only be resolved on a second viewing. But it's certainly a broad recommendation to everyone, though it is certainly a stressful watch, have to emphasize that. One battle after another, ex-revolutionary and his former cohort must fight to save his daughter after she's abducted by a former nemesis. And this one is a loose adaptation of the Thomas Pynchon novel Vineland. If you like popcorn entertainment sensibilities with high-level artistry and a good sprinkling of the unexpected, this is for you. It is my favorite of the nominees and one of my very favorites of the year. One Battle is nominated for Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor again, Best Supporting Actress, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Production Design, Best Original Score, Best Sound. I think this is a remarkably well-executed vision, so directing nomination makes all the sense in the world to me. Leo brings awesome comedic chops and a great voice to the character. Both Benicio and Sean Penn give such memorable performances. Many were disappointed that Chase Infinity did not find her way into the nominations. I wish she had gone for supporting actor rather than lead. Maybe that would have made more sense, maybe gotten her in. Regardless, fantastic debut performance for her. The screenplay is great, stunning cinematography work, especially in a certain car chase. Some wonderfully detailed, realized environments. But I think, to me, the two most specifically effective elements are the edit and the score. The edit is extremely smooth, and it's impressive in the way it keeps things moving and ties some things together, condenses some events. It's extremely efficient. And the score is so beautifully used, of course, in conjunction with the edit to put everything together, to tie together some long, diverse sequences, especially just the whole backed and cross sequence. I find that just amazing, and how the score can put all that stuff together under one neat package, one kind of chaotic package, but it's great. Blanket recommendation to everyone. Love this movie. Next is The Secret Agent. Marcelo journeys to the city of Recife to start a new life, but doesn't find the peace he seeks. This is the second straight year we've had a Brazilian film in the Best Picture race after I'm Still Here last year. If you like mysterious movies that don't spoon feed you and have a rich sense of culture, then this is for you. The Secret Agent is nominated for Best Actor, Best International Film, Best Casting. I actually just want to talk about the stuff really that it wasn't nominated for. Those are the things that stick out the most to me. There are international films I like more this year. I'll touch on casting later. Production design is great. Between that and the color grade, I think there's such a warmth and vibrance given to Brazil as depicted, and really that's a significant element of the film, and it's doing a great job at conveying that. I think it's an extremely interesting edit. It's trying to do a lot and largely succeeding. There are fun, broad, I might describe them, match cuts that are used well, and some quick little foreshadowing cuts of insert shots. The film moves well for 160 minutes. Didn't feel like a drag at really any point except the ending to me. I don't think it all works. I don't think I would want it to be nominated for editing, probably not, but it is an aspect of filmmaking that has a lot of thought put into it and a lot of specific storytelling effort put into it, and I appreciate that. This is an extremely likable movie, one that's rewarding to stick with, even as it kind of steadfastly refuses to give you answers as fast as you want them, and this movie's another blanket recommendation for anyone. Next is Sentimental Value. Sisters Nora and Agnes reunite with their renowned director-father, drawing up the past and the way it's impacted all three of their lives. If you like understated, exploratory character dramas, then this is for you. Sentimental Value is nominated for Best Director, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor. Maybe should have been a lead. Best Supporting Actress, Best Supporting Actress, Best Original Screenplay, Best International Feature, Best Film Editing. You can tell by the nominations that this is a character-focused movie. It's dominated by the acting and the script, and the movie is indeed heavily focused on those. And I think everyone nominated does quality work. Editing sticks out a bit, given that this doesn't feel like an Oscar-nominated editing movie. But it's a fun pick. I like it. The film is paced wonderfully. I think it flies by. I also think it does a great job picking and placing these reaction shots to reflect character states and provide some emotional storytelling. I think it's a very sensible nomination. And this is another broad recommendation movie, especially if you're in the mood for something a little more subdued. Sinners. Twin brothers return to their hometown to start over, only to find that a great evil is there waiting for them. The evil is vampires. If you like ambitious films with lots of music, horror, and humor, or if you just want to see one of the most notable hits of the year, then check it out. Sinners received actually a record number of 16 nominations. Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Original Screenplay, Best Casting, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Production Design, Best Costume Design, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, Best Original Score, Best Original Song, Best Sound, and Best VFX. Unfortunately, I am not the person to recommend this movie because I don't like it, so you could just take the word of all the other people who do like it a lot and the fact that it's nominated 16 times as evidence that it's worth a watch. There's great work done in the VFX for the twinning, especially. I think Delroy Lindo is the best part of the movie. I'm happy he's here as a nominee. That's pretty much all I got, though. Last is Train Dreams. A logger leads a life of quiet grace as he experiences love and loss during an era of monumental change in early 20th century America. If you like quiet, beautiful character dramas and Joel Edgerton, then this is for you. Train Dreams is nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Original Song. I like this movie a lot. It builds up a great sense of longing through the script and through the performances. It has a nice vision of the passage of time. Time really feels as though it slips by you. I think it's very reasonable to have it here for cinematography. It is beautiful. I think the strong point is the lighting. However, I do think it feels a little bit sloppy. The director and DOP team is still kind of developing their sense of visual grammar. So to me, at least, I think there are better nominees that could be here, but not like a ton. Happy that it's here. But it's an ambitious, likable, emotionally effective film, and I think it belongs in the Best Picture lineup. And this one's another broad recommendation for anyone. So the Casting Award is new to the Academy this year, and while we will learn more about the award in upcoming years, here's what this year's nominees might seem to tell us. The voting body values quantity. A surprising absence was Sentimental Value, which has 4 acting nominations. So you'd assume it was a guarantee, right, given the high quality of acting. I'll also note quickly that this is a different voting body than the acting one, because the relevant body is related to the award, and then the actual voting of the winner is voted on by everyone. So these are casting people that nominated these movies for the casting award. But you see that films like The Secret Agent, which has a large main cast, or Hamnet, which has a big crowd of extras that need to be handled well. So it seems that these things, just a lot of good work, is valued more than just hitting a few big performances. And perhaps they're just not as impressed by hiring some big names and having the big names come through. It Was Just an Accident was a long predicted awards contender, but unfortunately seemed to lose a lot of steam and was barely represented here. I think that's a real shame. It's one of my favorites of the year, and I think it would have been great to see it on the big stage. I would have loved to see Lost in Starlight in Best Animated Feature. Obviously, I'd love to see it in a lot of things, but would have been cool. Not like it ever really had a shot. I think The Mastermind was in contention for Best Score of the Year for me. I would have loved to see it here. Good News was a favorite international feature of mine. I know a lot of people didn't like Materialists, but I mean, I have to stick up for it here. I love what Celine Song does so much. I love her style and the way she approaches direction. I would have loved to have it in specifically direction, editing, and costume design. Wake Up Dead Man would have been a fun Best Adapted Screenplay nominee. But yeah, I mean, despite all the complaints and the things that I do like, the Oscars are not going to make most people happy about most things. I mean, they're just trying to shine a spotlight on noteworthy films while also being like a pro-Hollywood event. So, I'm just happy if cool movies are spotlit, and I think there are a bunch of cool movies being spotlit. So check out the heavy hitters, but also know that there is great cinema out there aside from these 10 films, aside from movies that are represented in the nominations. So don't let the watches end there. Continue to seek out other stuff because great stuff exists. Might just be under the radar.